Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Here's our presentation we did at Ryan Pineda'S Future Flipper event last June, about a couple weeks ago. So on this video, it's about an hour long, but we went in detail in our presentation. It was a great experience. Thanks for having us on, Ryan. You guys have questions about anything we say in this video, please leave them down below, and please share this video as well. If you got any value for it, please share it. Tag me on Instagram that you're watching it, and I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks again.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Gino and Chandler!
We got Mr. Hype Man over here, hyping us up early morning, getting us ready. But anyway, guys, first, thanks Ryan for having us come on here. We met Ryan about 6 months ago. We went golfing with him. Best investment we could have ever done. He put us in the room with Ryan and other people that he's obviously affiliated with. 6 months later, we're here now. So thanks again, Ryan, for having us. As the screen says, my name is Gino Palumba, CEO of Ferocity Assets. We're located in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yep, and my name is Chandler Sane, and I'm the COO of our company. So without further ado.
Yeah, so about me real quick. This is the boring part, but I'm from Georgia, 23 years old, started wholesaling at 19. I have 24 rentals, units. Hobbies are golfing. Pineda got me hooked. My first round was with Pineda in January, so he got me hooked on it. And traveling, as you can see here, this was like 2 weeks ago. I proposed to my, fiance now in Paris. So yeah, it was a great experience for sure. And then a lot of our presentation is going to be talking about this, but touring in Europe. So for 2022.
Yeah, and my name is Chandler. As you can see, that's actually a picture here in Vegas last time we came to the event. But I'm 23 as well. I run ultra marathons, which I had to put on here for Ryan because he loves it every time I talk about it. And I actually live in Denver, so I moved out there about a year and a half ago. But I love to do fitness and running and all kinds of other stuff outside. So.
Okay, so this is a little cringy over here, but this was actually a conversation I had with a seller. A lot of on the left side is irrelevant, but at the top you can see in 2018 I was texting this seller. Now, again, it's pretty cringy at the top. I'm trying to get this sale, telling her Merry Christmas, all this good stuff. But if you look at the bottom right, the last paragraph, or the last blue bubble, I just told her, more snow than I was just in Europe the week before. Mountains very big, but not as big as the Alps, but irrelevant. I could live here, but living in Europe is a main goal of mine. And so last year I did live for about 90 days in Europe, as long as a U.S. citizen could. And so it was the main reason, again, this is 2018 when I first started wholesaling. This was the main reason I wanted to do a virtual business, and that's what we're going to be presenting on, how to scale a virtual business. But I just want to preface all the way back to 2018, that was our goal. So again, real quick, creating a business around, why did we do this? I was hooked on traveling at 16, or in 2016, I was 17 at the time. We wanted the freedom like all of us here, most of us do, right? Want to be where I wanted, whenever I wanted, and with whoever I wanted. And you can see some pictures and some places that I went.
Yeah, and basically like the same thing for me is like I want to have the freedom to go wherever I am. Like, growing up, my parents were, they had their landlocked jobs. Like my dad had a landscape construction company, so he's got to live in that location in order to do the work. So I was like, that's just not what I want. I want to be able to travel and do all these kind of things, which allowed me to move out to Denver and do what I enjoy to do, which is be outdoors. So with that being said, let's get into it.
Yeah, so what we're going to be presenting on is how we took our self-development, how we become better, obviously developing ourselves, as well as, people in our business and our sales process to get us from the multiple six figures a year virtually to 7 figures last year and to hopefully even be around 5 million this year in wholesaling. So we're going to go over that today. First things first, Chandler.
Yep. So in 2020, again, we're just comparing back to when we did 6 figures in 2020 to 2021 when we did 1.8 million in gross profit. So 2020, the two big things we realized is that education is number one most important thing that fast-tracked our success. And you can see in 2020 we spent about $14,000. And we had also, in 2021, you can see we spent about $72,000. So the big difference in, that's $60,000 of extra spend to over double the business and gross profit is pretty definitely worthwhile. And also like the people side of it too, is we had about 12 people in 2020 towards the end. And then in the end of 2021, we had about 28 people. And so we're going to go into kind of how we brought these people on and then what we invested in and kind of why, what benefits did it bring to us.
Yeah, so on the first point Chandler talked about, we're going to start going over self-development. So these are all, and there's many other ones as well, but many programs that we invested in, Sharper, just to get over our business foundations. I think Gary spoke at this event a couple quarters ago, was a big one. Collective Genius, just a big mastermind. Real Estate Disruptors, I think a lot of us know Steve Trang. I'd started his sales program at 2020, and just a couple of our other mentors in there.
Yeah, and like a couple of these really key things are just kind of showing you, like, for example, like we get to see exactly what their 7-figure business looks like. So we want to replicate something similar to that for you guys. So like, for example, the results-driven program with Tiffany High, they show you exactly what it looks like for them. So we just were like, oh, well, let's just see what that looks like and take what we have and kind of emulate that. And also, like, we hired a leadership coach because we realized we had all these people, like towards the end of 2021, we got out of the day-to-day and we're like, well, how do we use these resources we have? So we hired a personal weekly mentor who we talk to an hour a week, and he's been super instrumental in us developing as leaders and developing strategy into the organization.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too, and we were talking this with Ryan yesterday on the podcast, of how you join these mentorships, and not only do you learn things, right? We went golfing with Ryan. Not only do we learn things from Ryan, but we also get access and become relationship. We get relationships with Ryan, but also with people that he knows, right? So a lot of this stuff, like I joined Steve's, thank you, immediately introduced me, Real Estate Disruptors on there, immediately introduced me to Pace Morby. So like these programs and where you invest in, like you guys are here now, right? Investing in a future flipper, and you can see like now you get connected to the guy next to you that can be your partner, like Ryan was mentioned earlier, or that someone that can introduce you to the next person that you're trying to get to. You're just one phone call away, right, from that next person. So it's very important to be developing into yourself, right? And so what do we do with this? So main thing I want to focus on is we learned what numbers we need to look at. And for our business of wholesaling real estate, right, we're direct-to-seller marketing. Big things we look at is, how many leads to appointments? What's that average? And so we just wanted to throw some numbers to give you guys some base marks of what we look at in our business. Again, it's just leads to appointments. It's about 8.5%. Now, granted, Darren's going to come on here later, talk about TV. You're going to be a lot higher amount of leads because they're higher quality. So again, this is just an average of all of our marketing channels, 8.5%. Appointments to appointments complete. This is a metric we never tracked, right? What is appointments to appointments complete is, how many do we attend them? And we're virtual, right? So we're on the phone. But how many times do we actually complete them? Because that was the thing we were having trouble with, right? We were like, man, we're not closing that many deals. And our percentage, at the bottom one right there, right under it is 20%. We're at like 15%. But we found out the reason we're at 15% was because we weren't completing all of our appointments, right? We would try to call the seller, they wouldn't answer, or maybe you go to attend their phone or the 10 in-person appointment, but they didn't show up, whatever it might be, right? So it's an important metric to track that. At least 80% of our appointments complete, 85%. And then appointment complete to contract, how many do you complete to get actually locked up? 20% we want to be baseline. These are all baseline numbers. Anything above there is great. Under there, we got to start measuring and seeing what's going on. And then obviously how many contracts to the ones you close, 75%.
Yeah, and a big part of this too is like these conversion factors really show like how good you are. So like if you're running really efficiently, they're going to be higher, right? If you're running inefficient, they're going to be lower. So you want to track like, these are the key numbers to measure your business health, at least for wholesale, like direct-to-seller marketing company. I mean, really any company, because everyone has leads, everyone has appointments, everyone gives offers, everyone gets a client, right? So you want to track those key metrics and then have like a total, but you also want to see how do you move through the line, like how many people are coming at the bottom of the funnel. So we're going to talk about how we use this.
Yeah, so what do we do with these numbers now? You guys get these numbers, you see them, and now how do we apply them, right? So we got to first determine our baseline. You guys should start measuring those in your business now, right? Maybe look and say, what's your lead to a appointment? What's your appointment? Get your baselines together, because now you can start making projections. And like I said, we're presenting on here is how we went from 6 figures multiple a year, 6 figures to 7 figures. And the biggest thing too in there that we did was actually look and track these numbers. And once you track them, that's not the only thing you can do. Like, you don't just track them and throw them aside. We used to do that, right? Oh, we know our numbers, but what do you do with them? And the second point there is we got to be able to make projections off it. So if we know that we're only closing at 15% for this month, we're going to just project that next month's the same. And with that being said, we need to figure out now how many appointments we need to be closing at it to get our contract goal, to get our lead goal. All this stuff like plays into your projections, and you got to project 6 months, 12 months, years out, right? And obviously, you can as well as figure out where can you get better. If you see you really declining on, your appointments complete to closing, maybe you got to do a lot more sales training. You got to help your acquisition reps. You got to listen to their calls. You got to, change things up. And so that was a pivotal thing that, took us from just doing multiple 7 figures to 1.8 to hopefully 5 mil this year, is really just honing in on those numbers and doing something with the numbers.
Yeah, and another thing too on the projection side is like you're going to be able to dial it down and know like, okay, it takes me this many, like, let's say phone calls to get a contract over like a longer period of time. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to over project by about like 20% because you're probably going to be inefficient. When you add more things into the funnel or the top of the funnel, so you get more leads, you're going to be worse at converting those leads into contracts because you're not going to be as operationally efficient. So make sure you over project with what you think you can do. Another thing too, on top of that, just as in one of the biggest things that we realized, because from going to 6 to 7 figures, is that most of the time it's just increasing the top of your funnel, like I just mentioned. It's like you don't need to do anything really internally. You just need to spend more on marketing or generate more leads. That's typically a lot of the times what we see. So going into people now. So, now that we kind of have figured out, the numbers, things that you need to track, is usually that requires, like when you increase the top of the funnel, you need more salespeople, you need people taking the phone calls, you need people setting appointments. So like showing here is like in 2020, we had about 12 people in the 28. So we got all these people, but what do they do? So that's what we're going to get into next is, the first part is usually systemizing yourself, right? So if you don't have a team, if you do have a team, you always are running the battle of optimizing what you do on a daily basis. And I put this in here because I think this is like pretty common fear. Is most people are like, what happens if they're not as good as me? Well, there's a scenario is like, well, let's say you spend 20% of your, let's say you're 100% efficient on doing whatever task. You spend 20% of your time on it. Effectively, you're 20% effective on that job. Well, let's say someone spends 100% of time on that and they're 50% effective. Well, they're 50% as good as you. They spend 100% of their time, they're 50% effective. So they're 2.5 times as good as you.
That's a lot of math right there.
That is a lot of math. I might have lost
I'm just sitting here, but yeah, exactly.
But anyways, so don't let that limit you. So anyways, just do it. So one of the things like choosing what your delegate is, always start is like, what are you not good at? If you suck at something, group them together into some kind of job, and then that's like a task. And usually people lean either people-oriented or operationally oriented, and try to group tasks into people-oriented would be like sales, operations would be like admin work. And those are usually people lean. Once you get your weaknesses outsourced, and you're always going to have weaknesses that you're outsourcing, but one of the simple tasks I like to do is write out every single thing that I do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly, whatever it is, and then we grade them on a scale of 0 to 4 revenue generating, and then scale 0 to 4 time consumption. So, you only want to do low time, high revenue, and, you definitely want to get rid of high time, no revenue. That's the first ones that pop off your plate. Because it's all about making more money is doing more with your time. So.
Yeah, and I think the big thing here is the mindset as well, because I know Pineda does a great job with this, right? We know he has all these companies, and he's able to delegate to the right people. He's got Nick back there working the wealthy way. I mean, he's just, you got to put your mind to it, and you got to trust people. That's a big thing we all do. And like when I first started this business, I was like, I can do it better than that person. I can do it better than this person. I'm not going to give them that task off. But like kind of what Chandler was saying before he went to the Pythagorean theorem or whatever he was saying is before he went into that, is if they can do it just 80% as good as me, that frees up my 100% to go work on something else that could be generating millions and millions of dollars. So big thing right there.
Yep. So now we're going to give you kind of a layout of the high level of like what are our key departments, how's the business laid out. And so first off, we got the marketing department. And this consists of basically we have a marketing director, we have an admin who does data and all kinds of other stuff to kind of assist her. We have a couple texters, we have some cold callers, and there's also a copywriter that we do for texting. Some of the marketing sources we have is we do cold call, obviously, we do text blasting with launch control, and then we do TV. TV is another awesome generator with Darren and Bullseye branding over there. So it's just not only has like Darren taught us, got us leads in our system, but also like, with Bullseye, kind of a lot of this stuff too plays into it. Like he taught us how to get more out of our pipeline too. So just going there.
Yeah, I think a big thing to note there, if you guys are texting, Launch Control we've seen have the most success. We've been doing it 2 years. But the thing that we a little bit Chandler touched on was that we have like 1 to 2 full-time copywriters. All they're doing is writing templates every day. And if you guys are texting, I'm sure you guys are aware, we're fighting against the carriers restricting us. We're fighting for being marked spam, right? All that stuff. And so we had the two full-time copywriters, and all they're doing is writing templates for text every day. And that's what really that's our best marketing source right now, texting, right behind TV, like Chandler said, which I'm excited to see Darren's presentation on, because like Pineda said, they're doing millions and millions of dollars a month in wholesaling. So here we go. So talking about lead management, right? So and part of our sales team is we have lead managers. Lead managers, for you guys that don't know, these are the people that are being the first contact from a marketing source, right? So a cold caller gets a lead that says they want to sell. They push it to our CRM, right, our customer relationship manager, where we stash all of our leads. And then that first point of contact in that CRM is our lead manager. What are they doing? Trying to qualify leads. manage leads, right? They're trying to figure out, is this person going to be a fit to sell to someone like us, which we all know majority of the time these sellers aren't a fit. It's a numbers game, right? You got to get on the phone, we got to disqualify as soon as possible, get on the next. But as you see here, we have 1 working director with 4 lead managers. The 3 metrics I want to put on here that we measure them every day is calls. How many calls did they have, right? How many conversations and how many appointments set. It's important to measure conversations because, again, going back to this carrier problem, a lot of your numbers get marked spam, and we want to be at least 20% calls to conversations. We make 10 calls, we want to have 2 conversations, and that's just based on seeing if our phone numbers aren't marked spam and we're still performing. So.
And a little bit on this position too, if you guys don't have like appointment setters, which that's what lead management does, is they go through all of our database and set appointments. It's a super critical position because it's 2 completely different roles, lead management and acquisitions. So setting up appointment versus closing, you all know is different. Lead managers need to be more organized. They're more like friendly people. Closers are a little bit more like driving sharks type mentality. So super important position we've added.
Yeah, so back to acquisition management. Acquisition now is the one like Chandler was hinting at. They get the appointments from the lead managers, and they're the ones that give the offers to sellers. And we'll go a little bit later into what that script kind of looks like. But we got 1 sales director from the U.S., 4 acquisition managers. We have 1 in Bolivia as well, full-time. And you guys can see we have a lot of virtual assistants that work in our business. It's just, an advantage we have at working virtually, that we can hire people all around the world, right? So their big numbers are appointments completed, like I mentioned earlier, contract percentage, how much did they close, what's that out of the appointments completed, and then how many dials did they make per day.
So moving on to the last part, these are technically 2 different departments, but we just put them together on the slide. So we get dispositions and transaction coordinator. So we have 2 dispositions people, which they're responsible for taking the contract and finding the buyer in the wholesale process. And we have an assistant who works alongside doing like all the paperwork, all the little stuff, right? So the disposition people can be selling. And then we have a transaction coordinator who she's responsible for clearing title and just making sure that we get to the closing table on the time. So funding, title's clear, payoffs there, everything's good to go. And this is going to be a super critical part of our business moving forward because, as the market, starts to change and inventory gets a little bit, more back to regular, or supply gets back to regular, then it's going to be harder to sell deals because, days on market are going to be more, buyers are going to be more timid and stuff. So it's going to be, you're going to do a lot more work. So we're going to be definitely.
Yeah, so we just came back from a mastermind last week with it's called Collective Genius. 200 of some of the biggest investors, Pineda'S in it as well, in the whole country. They do turnkeys, some do fix and flips, wholesale, all, everything, big buy and holds. And the big motto of the meeting or the mastermind was that it's changing from an acquisition model to more of a disposition model now. Before, it was a lot harder to have acquisitions to get contracts. Now it's turned into a lot more of a dispo with that changing market. So just what Chandler's saying, we're going to focus on all these new disposition strategies and the way to obviously still keep selling our deals as high as possible.
Yeah, so now that you kind of got that general layout of how the business is set up and how to delegate and all this kind of stuff, right? So it's now time to hire people. We got to find this talent. So one thing with being virtual is you can hire someone from literally anywhere in the world. It's kind of hard to do it if they're 8 hours ahead of you just because they got to stay up late at night or work early in the morning. But where we find our VAs is we find them on Upwork. And if you want to find South American VAs, just a quick tip is you can just literally put in the location on there on Upwork, and you'll get only applications from that geographical area. Sorry. And then WiseHire is another great place that we're hiring all of our sales guys from right now. And this apparently it posts on like all the major job boards. And we posted a job and it's like 200 applicants in like 3 days. So super great for there. Probably the absolute biggest 2 sources of hiring has been social media, friends, and referrals. So this is just simply having, we have a great culture, a great environment. People love working on our team. It's virtual. We're all young. We have fun. And then also having a social brand to where you show that off. And then when you ask for, referrals or post on social media, hey, we're looking to hire, people are DMing you everywhere because they're like, I want to work with these people. I want to be a part of something great and move that way. So.
Yeah, I'd say that a big thing is, I know Pineda'S going to love this, but the social media aspect. Right, when you're posting every day showing you're doing deals, you're doing something, even going through struggles, people see that you're genuine. And as soon as we, put any application up online, hey, we're looking for someone to, be our COO of this company, immediately we get a lot of interest in it, and we're not even close. We're like 100th of Pineda'S level of followers, but we still get a lot of hits from it. And I think it just goes to the, just a test to the fact of when you put yourself out there, even though it's awkward a lot of times, it can come back and many times over. And especially with people, they see that, right?
Yeah, so a little bit about our hiring process too here. So, when we look, what the first part is like, what do you look for even in a candidate? Is like the number one thing is past history success. If someone's like crushed it in sports, like a lot of the people we hire are like 25, 22, 23, straight out of college or high school. And if they've done really well at something else in the past, and they have the ability just to get good. So that's one thing that's we love. Another one is like being able to go through hard times and come out better on the other end. That shows us like, a lot of character. And, again, it's kind of the same thing. They're able to figure stuff out when it's hard. And those are the main two. And then finally, like we have this core value exercise, which I'll go over in a second, but they have to match our core values. Our core values are commitment, integrity, and growth mindset. And if they don't match those, then we will not hire them. We will fire you if you do not act in those core values. So a little bit about the process here is one, we just like on WiseHire, we'll pop up a job description, get their resume in. Then we set up an initial interview. And this is where we do the core value exercise. And this is all we want to do on this interview is literally just find out if they're a good culture fit. And culture just means it's core values in action. That's all culture is. So,
yeah, so I mean, one thing too on here, like Chandler's talking about is not only the core value is important, but you got to think about hiring people. Like we said, that's one of our big three things we're talking about today is people. And again, we're talking about Pineda yesterday, and he was telling us, as well, people is what grew him so quickly, and that's what we feel as well. You got to treat, hiring people just as if you're texting sellers or cold calling people. Like it's a numbers game. You got to send out as many, it's marketing sales. You got to market yourself out, whether that's social media, WiseHire, Upwork. You got to get leads coming in, and you got to filter them. You got to disqualify, like I talked about lead management, and like Chandler's about to get into exactly what that core value exercise is. And this is probably one of the most important things at the presentation of how we do this exercise.
Yeah, so the core value exercise is pretty simple. All you do is ask someone's like, and you can do this too if you want. If not, just do it later. It's really a good exercise. Is you ask yourself, who are 3 people that have impacted me the most in my life? And then what are 3 things about each one of those people that you see in them, like that you admire?
Make sure it's people too that It's not Michael Jordan. It's not like a famous person, Justin Bieber. But it's the people like your parents, your family, whatever it is, but someone you actually have a relationship with. And why do you think, what stands out? Like what character traits do they have? Yeah,
and then all those character traits or those things you admire about them, you just kind of group them together, and then you figure out a list of like 3 or 4 things that you're like, this is, if the people don't act in these values, like for us, integrity, commitment, growth mindset, they don't act with those character traits or those values, then they're gone. And it's that simple. Like they get one warning, they're out the next time. So the next part is like after that, we do like a personality test. They take an IQ test and an EQ test. Those are good things. You can get a good gauge on where someone's at. And then once they pass that kind of thing and they do that, they have an interview with their director. This one we're actually trying to figure out how good they might be at the job and if they're going to fit that team's specific culture. And then questions like, what have you done in the past? What is your most proud accomplishment? What's the hardest thing you've done? That kind of stuff. And then if they pass that with the director, then they come on to a panel interview where you have 3 people in there, and we just ask them all the red flag questions. Like everything we've seen through the process, we're drilling it, we're asking the tough questions because you're going to see people's true character come out. And, if they make it through that and they handle everything well, then they're good to go. Let them rock. So,
yeah, one more thing, too, to hit. EQ is like rating their emotional intelligence as well for anyone that did not know that already. So we look at how are they emotionally, how can they handle emotions. So if I'm dealing with a salesperson, I need to make sure that they're not going to get over emotional, which a lot of salespeople do, and start making, yelling at sellers when they're telling them I don't want to sell or cursing them. So that's a big thing we look at. And then like predictive index is just another personality test, and it's you have to pay for it, but it's Gary Harper talks about it a lot. That presented a couple quarters ago. That was with Sharper, and it's game changer. I know some of the biggest guys in the industry doing crazy numbers, and they swear by predictive index. So I would do some more research on that. And if we're gonna have, I think, a Q&A later, so we can talk more about some of that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So now that you found the person, you brought them on board, you got to figure out how to train this guy. Like, so what do you even do? Like, where do you even start? So the first thing is you kind of figure out, what does this person already know? Like, what are we working with here? If they don't know anything, which is a lot of people we hire, then you got to start with the foundation, the fundamentals of the skill. So like if it's a salesperson, they got to learn the script. They got to learn what a good appointment or someone closing is. They got to learn these fundamentals, and then you kind of go through that. So you teach them that, and then they start shadowing some people, maybe shadow you, maybe shadow some other team members, and then you put them into training. If they have a lot of skills, like they'll say they've done this job before, then you really just teach them like what to do. Like, how does your system work? What is the goal? And then kind of let them rip, and then let them go out there and try and fail, and if they fail and if they succeed, then great. Just train them up on what they do know and kind of mold them to your process. So that's been what we do. And as far as like a training cadence, when you bring someone on, we have what we call a daily huddle, which I'll go over on the next slide. But basically, we have a team group meeting every morning. It's like 30 minutes with them, so they're in that. And then also, there's usually a 30 to 60-minute meeting in the afternoon, one-on-one with the person who's training them, just to make sure we're getting them up to speed. So we're going on any struggles they have, anything we've seen from listening to their calls or reviewing their work or working alongside them, whatever it might be. And you do this second training in the afternoon until you feel like it's a waste of time. Usually it's between like 7 to 14 days is when I feel like it's a waste of time. So that's usually when we stop doing that and we only do the morning huddles at that point, which again, we'll explain on the next slide. And then a question that I always get is like, what happens if you spend all this time with people and they leave? And like my question is always, what happens if they stay? You know, like, do you want someone who's trash and you've never spoke to them one time about how to talk to a seller or told them how to do the job? Like, no, you don't want that. So you need to spend the time with them. It's going to be a massive, massive return on your investment.
And I think that's a big thing to bring up because we've done a lot of leadership coaching, and it's like, this person left. We all have that. Like, I've done it too. I'm guilty of it. Like, this person was terrible. Like, we should never have hired them. This was, dumb for us to even think about doing. But then you look back and like, did you do everything you could to make that person successful? And you think of your question, well, I could have stayed a little longer and trained them a little harder on this. I could have done. And what that's going to teach you is like, hey, in the future, I need to start, whatever I came up with after saying that to myself, I need to start implementing that, put that down on my process. And it'll really just, let the tide go out and see really what was at fault. And it's 100% probably your fault that person didn't succeed, right? And so you can just adapt and figure out, hey, next time I'm going to do this, this, and this. And that can also prevent you. I mean, that's what's helped us hiring 20, now for 2022, we're at like 34, 35 people. So it's just, keeping on, we don't have a lot of churn, just figuring that out and, knowing that, hey, we're usually at fault in the past. How can we get better?
It's that extreme ownership if anyone's reading Jocko books. So next up is accountability. And what is accountability is kind of like, it's kind of like a loose term. Everyone throws it around, have accountability, blah, blah, blah. But accountability is simply a reminder of an agreement we've already had. So we agree, you're going to do X. I just remind you, hey, did you do X? And you say no, and we're going to talk about it like you told me you would. But anyways, everyone has a number on the team and the sales team, marketing, admin. Everyone has a number that contributes back to revenue. That is the ultimate goal, is revenue. So if their department's responsible for leads, then their number is going to be directly influencing leads. And this is what we do. We check that number every single day, every single morning in our daily huddle. And the way the daily huddle works is we start it with gratitude. What are you grateful for today? What's something good that happened? What are you looking forward to? Something along those lines. Start with a positive note. We review the numbers, the key numbers, the critical number that everyone has. And then we hold them accountable to that. So just to give you a quick high level of what that looks like is if they miss it one day, it could be a fluke, right? It's no big deal. If they miss the number 2 times in a row, it's a conversation. Hey, what are you going to do to get that up? It's been 2 days. Oh, this happened. Yeah, okay, whatever, no worries. If it's been 3 days, it's a conversation to where maybe there needs to be some additional training. Maybe you need to do some additional digging, and you need to help them get out and have a path to green. So, and after we kind of have that accountability for them, and again, you don't want to, really drill into anyone too publicly. Like you want to do that kind of privately, so you don't want to embarrass them too much, but you still have to be firm and have that public group accountability. And then the back end of after the first 5-10 minutes of doing the accountability, the gratitude, is we just go into basic training. Like, what are we struggling with? What can we work on as a team? And then do that.
And these daily huddles are per department, right? So we got a sales department's doing the daily huddle together. It's actually split up between lead management, acquisition management. Disposition has their own huddle. So it's not like we're all on the call, all 35 of us. It's split in departments. So that's very important. We can make it very personalized as well when we're talking to these individuals. And one other important thing that I think we should state is something that's helped us a lot going back to our leadership coach is like kind of what Chandler talked about real quick is accountability. Like, hey, if, our goal is to have 50 calls a week or a day, excuse me. Hey, can I ask you, is it possible for you to make 50 calls a day? Literally, that's what we're just talking. Yeah, I can. Okay, so Ryan, if you don't make 50 calls a day, what should we do? And then it's like, well, I'm going to do it, but if I don't do 50 calls a day, you should probably check up on me. Something might be wrong. And so guess what happens? 50 makes 40 dials, and I say, oh, you remember you told me to check up on you? What's going on? Oh, I had this happen today, and my girlfriend's mad at me, whatever it is, right? And so being able to upfront agreement, have an upfront agreement with the seller, or with your people, that's going to prevent any further, fighting back and forth, arguments that you're going to have in the future. Like, why didn't you hit 30 calls? No, you remember, Ryan, when I asked you if you could do 50, you said you could do it. What happened, And right there, that's a big leadership, thing that you can use, and your people start respecting you because they know you're not just targeting them. They know they made the promise to you, and, they pretty much understand why you're coming and asking them these questions.
Yeah, and that leads into the last part, too, is like what happens when someone misses a number. It's like you're always curious, like, what happened? Like, what can I do to help you get to the goal that we set? And you're always coming from that angle, and you're figuring out where did they mess up. Like if, maybe they had a life problem or something that they missed their call number. They're like, honestly, man, like I'm going through this hard time. My girlfriend broke up with me, whatever it is, right? Everyone's people, right? So they all have these problems, and you got to sometimes be a mentor, and not only a coach, a mentor, but a leader and a friend. So you got to just be on their side. You're on their team. You're not saying, you got to do this, you got to do that. It's just, you're helping.
And I was guilty of this too, being transparent. Last 2 months, we missed our contract goal by like 50%. And it was because every day, and I was just a sales manager, every day I was honing in on the department head of the acquisitions, like, what's going on? Hit this number. You got to do this number. No, you missed this number. And when it came to the point, like, he just told me up front, like, bro, it's not fun anymore. Like, you're just putting too much pressure on me, too many numbers, and it goes kind of, with this, they kept missing the number, and I kept saying, it's red, what are we doing to fix it, what are we doing to fix it? And, he's actually a good friend of mine before we even did the business, and he was just like, bro, it's just too much pressure. And so you also got to know your balance, right? It's not, hey, every single day, like, I was hounding on, why is this red, like, what's going on? And we just figured out that I was putting up too much pressure, it's my fault, and since then, like, we're well over track on our goals for contracts.
Yeah. And a great book for this, if anyone's interested, is called The Dichotomy of Leadership by Jocko. And that's a great book, so let's keep going.
So here, we're a virtual company, right? We do have 8 or 9 people in Georgia, actually, that work with us. So we do occasionally get to go out, play some top golf with some of our team members in there. But it's really hard, when you have people living in Spain, Venezuela, Nicaragua, all over the world to, build a company culture, right? I mean, we can't just all take them out and enjoy, meet each other face to face. So we intentionally, go after this. And the big first starter we already talked about earlier is core values. If we can all rally around the same core values, our culture is pretty much built in right there, right? And as well as, we have a purpose statement, developing communities, creating opportunities, and putting you first, right? And that's our statement to, anyone we work with. And same with us on the leadership team, for my teammates, whoever it is, like, that's what I'm doing right here. I'm trying to develop communities. We've recently sponsored down in Nicaragua. One of our employees, our co-callers, is a pastor, gave them like $500, fed all these kids. Like, we try to do as many things as possible with our team, help them out in hard times or when they want to do any sort of charity work. But the big thing, how we do it too every week, is we have weekly team meetings. Again, like, a lot of us are virtual. So we'll have a team meeting, and it would be 60 minutes on a Friday. And literally, like, one of the meetings was, hey, bring someone of significance, and I want you to share your favorite moment with them. And so we had everyone, a lot of them didn't speak English, so we're like translating. It was a fun whole time, like, we were all having a good time, and we were able to build, relationships, and, someone in common, and, someone in Spain had something in common with someone in, Georgia. And so just bringing everyone together and, bringing other people involved in those people's personal lives was a huge exercise.
Yeah, and these people, like, the people on our team really look forward to this weekly meeting because it's not anything about business. We're literally talking about, like, one of the scenarios is, like, if you could pick 3 people on the team to go into a zombie apocalypse with you, who would you pick? Who would your squad be? And, like, what would each person bring to the table? And, like, stuff like that. So it's kind of fun.
That's what happens when you have 22-year-olds running the business. We just, all the different things.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Some reckless ones we can't share, but,
Yeah, but the probably the most impactful one to realize that we've done a pretty good job at this is one of the most recent meetings we did is we asked to bring and share one of the most impactful moments Ferocity Assets has ever done for you and your family. And when everyone made their share, it's like, wow, it kind of gives you, it almost brings a tear to your eye. You're like, dude, we've done a pretty cool thing here. So it's just great seeing that come together. So it's probably the most important thing, most powerful thing we've done.
For sure. So now getting into, right, we hit the self-development, we hit, the people, how it helped us, now going into sales. So in 2020, again, where we went 700,000, it was me closing about half the year, and then I brought in an AM, and we didn't know what we were doing. We're looking around. We have no sales process. We're just call this person out. Let's hope we get them on a deal. We don't know how to underwrite or anything. Let's just lock them up, right? And obviously lock them up if it's a deal. And so now we actually developed a sales process. And so this right here is the diagnosis script. And all these are phone calls. This is what our lead managers go over, okay? So our lead managers, this is like just bullet points of their script, main key points, right? They set expectations. Hey, Mr. Seller, I'm going to ask you a couple questions about your property and your situation. Is that okay? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, perfect. Well, as well as if we are a good fit, if I figure out, if I feel we're a good fit, I'm going to set you up to talk to one of our home buying specialists, who our acquisition managers are. We just say home buying specialists. It sounds a lot better. And so we're telling this person at the beginning of the call, because I'm sure we've all heard it, right? This is going on setting expectations right now. We've all heard this, what's my offer, what's my offer, what's my offer? Well, Mr. Seller, remember when I told you that I'm going to have to ask you some questions about your property and situation? You told me that's okay? Yeah, I had to get that first. And you remember also when I told you if we are a good fit, I would let you know. I would send you over to our home buying specialist, and they'll let you know what your property qualified for. Remember when and you said, yeah? Oh, yeah, so I need to do that first. I can't give you the offer. They're the one that gives you. And all this, right, this saves any objections you get during your whole entire script process as a lead manager. And that's how we set the stage, right? And a lot of stuff we learned from Steve Trang, some things from Pace and Tiffany High as well. But, we'll go through these bullet points. Again, this is a lead manager call. This is the first call in our CRM. They're going to confirm property condition, get that, confirm roadblocks. Hey, is there anyone that has input on the decision for you to sell your property? Not is there any decision makers. We want to see who has input on the decision. Because we all know the old grandma, or the old grandpa or the old dad, no, my wife she's not a decision maker. I'm the one that makes all the decisions. Okay, but is there anyone else that has input? Well, yeah, I got to talk to my wife, but, I make the decisions. Well, you just uncovered a hidden deal killer right there, because 99 out of 100 times, the wife is really the one that's controlling and has input on that decision. And if you can identify that right away, you can set up your acquisition managers, and they know that, hey, we're not going to give an offer out until the wife's on the phone as well. And that will save you from him saying, let me go talk to my wife. And, of course, he'll never tell you that. He'll just say, I got to think about it. But that's what he has to do, right? So big things there. Motivation's the number one thing out of this whole entire process. You got to find the pain, right? Steve Trang talked about it a lot. You got to find the pain, because the people that are selling to us, more than likely, 90% of the time have a pain point. And if we can get really good, because we know humans make decisions off emotions, right? I think Pineda was talking about earlier how people, when crypto crashed, everyone had emotion. They're all selling. No one wants to own it, right? People make decisions off emotion. So we can dig in, use different strategies. Tell me more about that and about the tenants destroying your property. How long has that been going on? It seems like it's been a pain for you. It sounds like you're going through, and let them just talk. The deeper we can get them in their emotions, the better price we can get, right? So obviously we ask them price, and then we set expectations for the next call. Like I kind of mentioned, is if they are a good fit, hey, I'm going to transfer you over to one of our home buying specialists right now. He'll let you know what the property qualified for. Notice I didn't say he's going to let you know what the offer is. We say qualified for too as well, because it sounds more legit and sounds more, hey, when you go to a bank and it tells you the property qualified for X, it doesn't sound like you can negotiate really as much, right? So just little implements here. Offer call as well. This is now, they transfer it over to the acquisition manager. The goal in the offer call, build rapport, set the stage, let the seller know, hey, if are you able to go over an agreement right now? Before we even give an offer, are you able to do that? Yeah, I can. Perfect. Then I'll move on. If they can't, I'm going to set up another time, because we don't send agreements unless they're ready to go over them right now. We address roadblocks. Same thing like I talked about the wives. We'll make sure they're on the phone. State their motivation. Get them really up in that pain like we talked about. And then we'll present them with the number the property qualified for, right? Real specific. And then that's it. And real quick, contract call. We have a contract call. We don't just send the contract and pray. We used to do that. So many times I'm sure everyone here has had it happen to you. You never hear an answer back. We post-close them. This is my last important point I'll go on is we ask the seller, hey, look, this is again, once we've already agreed on a price, we've already agreed on terms. And Mr. Seller, I'm about to send over agreement to you, but before I do, let's say the agreement looks good. There's no questions, and obviously we already agreed on price. There's no questions with the agreement. What would happen next? And just pause. And what we're looking for is them to say, I will sign the agreement. What do you think, Gino? I'll sign the agreement. And they just post-close themselves. They literally just closed themselves. They just told themselves, I would sign. I didn't ask them, are you going to sign the agreement if I send it over to you and everything looks good? And that relieves the pressure off them. One, they close themselves, so when they go through the agreement and they say, well, I need to think about it a little bit. Well, I'm confused. You told me that what you said you would sign. So something must not look good on this agreement. And you can go back, handle objections. So we post-close first. Want them to say they'll go sign the agreement. Then we'll go over the agreement. Important process, set the expectations for the next the rest of the transaction. So.
Yeah, and just to if you go back to that last slide, I guess it doesn't really matter. But like the whole reason we even made a process is because we needed, one, to know how to train people, and then two, we were like, we got to hire all these other people. How are we going to teach them what to do? So, kind of the quick and dirty way that we built that out is we took what we did, and then we just made it in an order, and we put it in the best order that we could do, and we just repeated it, and then we'd refine it over time. So as problems come up, like for example, the expectations. If something comes up on the back end, a lot of times you can just address it in expectations, and that fixes the issue back, the bottleneck on the back end. So this is a quick way to go do it. It looks like a lot, and it might be overwhelming, but just start with just an order of high-level things that you already do, and just order them, and then follow that order, and then address it or improve it accordingly.
If you guys have questions, again, we're going to do that Q&A, so we can go deeper in the sales process, and that's the stuff I like, you can tell. But next, here we go, recap, Chandler.
Yeah, so just to recap, education is in self-improvement. It should be a never-ending thing. It literally is the only reason why we have done what we've done, and we're going to do what we're going to do. So never stop learning, never stop improving. The day you stop learning is the day you get left behind. So the other part is I was actually asked this question probably like 2 weeks ago. I went out to lunch with a buddy, and he just simply asked us, like, what allowed you guys to be able to have so much success fast? And obviously education's one. But the other part is that we got lucky with people. We hired a bunch of great people. We built a great culture, and we executed on training them. And that's all we did. And we didn't do anything special. We just did it every day. And so make sure people are really, really, really important. And then the last part is having a sales process. This streamlines everything. It makes sales more consistent. It allows you to be able to train. It allows you to be able to scale sales. So
yeah, that's the big thing. Scalability is a huge thing. We're talking about how you go from 6 to 7 figures. If you want to scale, you have to have a sales process in play.
Yeah, because ultimately to go from 6 to 7 figures, you can definitely do all the work if you want to work 12, 15 hours a day and grind. But you more than likely are going to need to be able to scale yourself out and have other people do what you're doing. And just to define scaling, I like definitions so we know what you're talking about here. Scaling is having. Are you laughing? I heard you laugh. I heard him laugh over here.
Over there,
but scaling is literally just defined as this is how I define it, is doing everything you used to do, but having other people do it just as well as you used to do it. And that's pretty much it.
That's the big thing. And so, guys, if you want to contact us, you can just do the good old QR code, COVID menus, the restaurant menus. But, you can follow us there. Also, obviously, Facebook as well is my name, Gino Palumba. We could talk later if you guys have questions. And we also have a podcast, free podcast. We had Pineda on before. We had Darren, who's about to come up here and destroy us. He's going to make us look like babies, but he is a dad to us. He is kind of like a second dad. We know Darren really well, so I guess he could say he could destroy us like we're his sons. So, but anyway, guys, thanks again, and we're going to have that Q&A, later on today. And so thanks for having us again, Pineda, and thanks again, guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Give him some love, everybody.
Good job, gentlemen. Rock and roll, rock and roll.